If you had breakfast this morning, maybe it was bacon and eggs. You scrolled past advertisements that didn't look like advertisements, news stories planted by people you will never meet, and opinions you believe are entirely your own. But none of these moments are an accident. Every single one traces back to one man, a man who realized over a century ago that the most powerful force on earth isn't military strength or political authority, but the ability to make people want things they never knew they wanted. His name was Edward Bernays, the double nephew of Sigmund Freud, and he essentially engineered the modern world. Born in Vienna in 1891 and raised in New York, Bernays studied agriculture at Cornell, but his real fascination was influence, how to shape what people think, feel, and buy. His breakthrough came in 1913 while co-editing a small medical journal. He took on a controversial French play about syphilis called Damaged Goods, which no New York theater would touch. Instead of promoting it as entertainment, Bernays reframed it as a vital public health crusade. He assembled a committee of respected doctors and prominent citizens, turning attendance into a civic duty. The play became a roaring success, and Bernays unlocked a foundational truth. You don't sell people a product, you sell them a version of themselves. When America entered World War I in 1917, Bernays joined the Committee on Public Information. Alongside figures like Walter Lippmann, he helped manufacture public enthusiasm for the war effort. Through patriotic speeches, posters, and newsreels, the committee convinced a skeptical public that fighting overseas was a noble crusade to make the world safe for democracy. Standing in Paris after the war, watching crowds cheer President Woodrow Wilson like a deity, Bernays had an epiphany. If propaganda could rally an entire nation for war, those same psychological techniques could be deployed during peacetime to shape habits, desires, and political views. Returning to New York, Bernays opened a firm with his wife and partner, Doris Fleischman. Realizing the word propaganda had taken on a dark connotation after the war, he coined a brand new phrase for his discipline: public relations. To make his methods scientific, Bernays drew directly on his uncle Sigmund Freud's theories of psychoanalysis, as well as social psychologists like Gustave Le Bon and Wilfred Trotter. Freud argued that human beings are driven by hidden, irrational desires and fears. Bernays realized that to manipulate people, you don't appeal to their intellect or logic, you connect your product or cause to their subconscious impulses. He laid out this philosophy in his groundbreaking books Crystallizing Public Opinion and his 1928 manifesto, Propaganda. In the opening lines of Propaganda, Bernays wrote openly that the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society, and that those who manipulate this unseen mechanism constitute an invisible government. To Bernays, the public was too irrational and easily swayed to govern itself, so an elite class of public relations managers had to quietly direct society from behind the scenes. His commercial campaigns were masterclasses in third-party authority and emotional association. When the Beechnut Packing Company wanted to boost lagging bacon sales, Bernays didn't run ads telling people to buy bacon. Instead, he surveyed thousands of physicians asking if a heavy breakfast was healthier than a light one. When doctors agreed that a hearty breakfast replenished overnight energy loss, headlines across the country declared that medical experts recommended a heavy breakfast of bacon and eggs. Sales soared, and a corporate narrative became a permanent cultural tradition. An even more famous campaign occurred in 1929 for the American Tobacco Company. At the time, a strict social taboo prevented women from smoking in public. Bernays consulted psychoanalyst Abraham Brill, who explained that cigarettes represented symbols of male power. To women fighting for equality, smoking could represent an act of defiance. During New York's famous Easter Sunday parade, Bernays hired fashionable young women to walk down Fifth Avenue and dramatically light up cigarettes in front of tipped-off photographers. He branded the cigarettes "Torches of Freedom." Front-page stories framed the event not as a publicity stunt, but as a bold feminist demonstration. Within a decade, public female smoking was normalized and cigarette sales doubled. Bernays's techniques reached their most destructive extreme in 1954 in Guatemala. Working for the United Fruit Company, whose vast banana land holdings were threatened by President Jacobo Arbenz's democratic land redistribution reforms, Bernays launched a massive disinformation campaign. He flew American journalists on curated tours, flooded news outlets with reports, and branded the Guatemalan government as a Soviet communist threat on America's doorstep. This manufactured outrage created the political cover for a CIA-backed military coup that overthrown Arbenz. The resulting regime ushered in decades of military dictatorship and a brutal civil war that cost over 200,000 lives. When Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, was discovered to be using Bernays's book as a blueprint for Nazi campaigns, Bernays expressed shock but casually dismissed it by stating that any human tool can be used for good or evil. He viewed his methods as morally neutral instruments, refusing to confront the dangerous reality of releasing mass psychological manipulation into the world. Edward Bernays lived to be 103 years old, passing away in 1995. By then, his techniques had become so deeply woven into commercial, political, and media architecture that they became completely invisible. Every time you see an influencer subtly pitching a product, a think tank study funding a corporate agenda, a political image packaged for television, or a social media algorithm designed to exploit your emotional triggers, you are swimming in the current Bernays created. He transformed citizens into consumers, political debate into branding, and democracy into the engineering of consent. The invisible world we live in today is the world Edward Bernays built.